All right, so we already have something really interesting coming up, and the draft is largely going to come around kits and meta, which might not be your cup of tea, but it's worth discussing from like a strategy point of view, and like what to take and what to hate draft.
Hmm.
Zaya and Rakan are lovers, and their kit actually amplifies each other. They have better effects when the other person is on your team. And
Okay.
so when Zaya has an ability to attack faster on her W, and it deals an extra it's extra attack speed and extra on hit damage. When Rakan is nearby, he also gains that ability, and
Huh.
so suddenly it's like giving Rakan a fourth ability, and he gets much stronger. Additionally, the dash range that Rakan has, he normally can dash to a teammate about like this far. To Zaya, he can dash this far. And so you can do extra plays with them together. Also, when you recall, if one of them is 1 through 7 seconds out of 8 done channeling, the other one can join them and press the recall button as well, and they will recall together, smooching.
Whoa.
So you can do some really bizarre things with this lane if you have them both together. For example, Zaya can say, I want to recall, right? So I press B. Rakan says, okay, I got you, babe. I'm going to go harass them for 4 seconds, then jump back to you, and then I will join in on your recall.
Hmm.
And suddenly it
Hmm.
means that we get to go back to base and shop, and they don't. And they need to wait another 8 seconds for their own recall. And so that's like one of the things you can do with this tandem that is very, very powerful. And
Yep.
whenever both of them are available in the meta, like when they're both tuned to be strong enough to be worlds worthy, this tends to be the dynamic of drafts where you have to pick Zaya in the first pick. Because when you do, enemy team is forced to take Rakan. And in this case, what they basically created with these bans, when you go Callista, Jarvan, Renata, and it's answered by Nico, Rumble, Sejuani, they basically took away 5 out of the 6 OP champions in the draft. All right. And now red team
Okay.
does this very intentionally. They don't draft another one right here or they don't ban another one. They say, it's okay. You can have Zaya. I'm going to respond with Oriana, who's an OP champion, and I'm going to force you to answer that. I'll take the Rakan away from you. And now, as it goes back to your turn, you don't have any OP meta picks left. So you end up going with like the next best mid laner, who's Azir. Azir also has a winning 1v1 against Oriana, so it's very common to see Azir against Ori. And then you ask them the question, but you say, okay, are you super happy that you have Zaya and Azir? Because now you've basically, with this start, we took Oriana Rakan and we kind of locked you into these 2 picks. What are you going to do with your third pick to say that you've gained any meaningful advantage?
Hmm.
Right, and so
Yep.
that's a very well executed draft by red team. The prevailing wisdom is that you're just better off banning Zaya, and you say just ban it, and then it's gone. But the correct answer to do when you leave it up is to leave exactly one OP champion up, and then you ask them, do you want the OP, and then we get Zaya Rakan, or
Hmm.
do you want Zaya to force us to pick Rakan, but we also get an OP champion?
Hmm.
And so a very, very well executed draft by JDG to make that
Makes
happen.
sense. Cool.
All right, team comps. This is what they do at the beginning. By the way, they show all the runes. So if you're ever interested in trying to play one of these champions and pick it up, you can just scroll to the 120 mark in the game and look at what runes they used and play that for yourself.
Well,
And
how much dependency is there in the rune choice? Are they tailoring that? Um, yeah. I. It,
Yes,
Is this based on enemy comps? Is it what is this based on?
runes tend to be early game skewed. You tend to take the rune that is best for you in the early game so that you can survive laning phase and try to come out with snowballing advantages, because
Yeah.
snowballing with levels is much more impactful than any item or rune. So if you can use your rune to gain a level on somebody, then you can call that an advantage all game long. And
Yeah, I just mean like, are you only doing your rune selection based on your champion and its kit in a way that is static, or are you adjusting it to what you're up against or who your teammates are?
it's both. You're definitely adjusting it to the game, but there's a certain, you know, there's a field of options that you
Yep.
could go. Oh, like for example, when you're playing Yorick, you know that there's Conqueror, there's Grasp. You could do First Strike, or you could do Comet, right? And so
Hmm.
you're aware of 4 different rune pages that are available for Yorick, and then the question of which one to play is usually dictated by what the rest of the champions in the game are. So, for example, Azir has Hail of Blades. This is going to make you attack 4 times in the time frame when you would normally only get 2 attacks. And it's on a little bit of a
Yep.
cooldown, but Azir is going to take his soldier, he's going to throw it at you, and then he's going to go attack, 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 attack very quickly, because that's what Hail of Blades does. And so this is something that Azirs do to defeat Oriana's. Because
Mm.
Oriana, if left to her cooldowns, she has better cooldowns than you. She has her own empowered auto attack. She can definitely fight you if you end up going blow for blow, unless you have this way to accelerate. And paired with the Hail of Blades, I can guarantee you, I didn't see it, but Cheap Shot is in the red tree. This is anytime you mitigate someone's movement speed, you deal extra damage to them. So Azir's Q has a slow attached to it. So you throw the Q, you're going to get Hail of Blades, you're getting Cheap Shot, and almost definitely has the blue tree for Scorch as well. And Scorch is whenever you deal damage, deal an extra like 15 to 40 burn damage, something like this, in the
Yeah, I
early
think it
game.
is that.
And so this Azir is very much saying, I'm going to lean on you hard. I'm going to poke you with every set of spells that I've got to try to push you into your turret. And then he's going to put these sand soldiers out like this and say, all right, hit you, hit you, hit you. Look at that. Hit, hit, Q, hit. And then he dashes back. And he's like, that's enough.
Hmm.
I get that little bit of an advantage. Scorch is ticking the whole time. You know, I feel really, really good about this situation. And as long as I survive the lane against Oriana, Azir's team fighting, this is probably the highest damage mage as far as damage over time is concerned. Like end game scaling, like who am I going to pit against each other? Azir is on Mount Rushmore for end game champions. So Azir picked laning prevalent runes so that they could let their kit do the talking later.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
A little interesting window that we saw down bottom. When bot lanes don't fight very much, when the carry recalls, the support roams. And when I was talking about Azir's Sand Soldiers, you may have noticed that there was a red health bar kind of tucked in right behind here, and it's why Azir shuffled himself away. It's because Rakan was on that roaming timer where he's like, I've got nothing to do. I'm still full health. I've got nothing to buy because I'm a support. I don't have extra gold yet. And so my carry goes and gets a recall. I'm going to go be proactive and make a play in mid lane.
Hmm.
You tend to see these support roam timers kind of match because there's such a big discrepancy. If one team is able to get a recall off and the other team is not, then you come back with such a meaningful gold advantage that it becomes very, very hard to play the lane anymore. So if one carry recalls, it's probable that the other one's going to recall as well. And so both supports are then like, what do I do? You know, what questions can I pose to the enemy team? Or am I just the answer? I might be the answer. And in this case, Nautilus is like, Rakan is moving. I need to be in position in case Rakan actually goes for a fight here. I want to be here to like help to clean it up. So it'll be very interesting to see like how the supports move. As far as what top laners see, most you've seen that this series, these guys have been on an island. There's literally been zero jungler activity in the top lane. And in fact, Azir moving towards the top lane right now is the first time in 3 games that any champion has come into the top corner of the map. It's literally top lane island over there. And it's York's kingdom. But
I haven't really been playing much top with York.
oh yeah, is it mostly just other lanes or jungle or what?
Mostly mid.
Oh, mid. Okay.
Yeah.
That probably throws people off too because they are not used to seeing York in the mid lane. So you're like, I get to hit you with ghouls. They're certainly not hitting you enough to punish.
Yes, they're as the person that doesn't know what playing well means, they're definitely not playing it well.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The things that JDG is trying to do this game. This is the #1 area of effect carry in the game. Her ultimate gives extra attack, extra movement and attack speed to everybody on the team, and it lets her attack faster as well. They are trying to press their R buttons together. This R is a charm. I run through people and they follow me. Orianna ultimate is I take people that are close to an area and I vacuum them in and deal a massive amount of damage. Wukong is I dive into an area and I start spinning like a cyclone. All right. So you see, like, these champions are looking to press their R buttons together, meaning that they want this like big explosive team fight around the pits, kind of like they did in the first game, but then they didn't really play towards that strength. They took a couple more like random side lane fights. But this time we're kind of a little bit more fighting fire with fire. Last time we had an Akali, who is an assassin that wants to play in the side lane versus Orianna all game long. This game, Azir, who was banned in that game, is now there and saying, okay, you want to fight? Like, as long as you don't scoop me up, I can win fights. So Azir is going to look to position himself with kind of 2 sentries, that it's going to be Nautilus and Rel. These 2 people are looking to turn fights. Hold on, I'll watch this fight in the top lane. They're getting a very nice dive off. Very clean. Azir pushes them back, so they get nothing back. Very nicely done by KT. The fans must be going nuts right now.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's top lane. This is something that is not going to happen in any of your solo queue games. This sort of like dive execution. You're gonna watch it right here in slow motion. The wave is coming in. They bring 3 people together. They use 1 spell into another spell, into another spell, and the Aatrox basically never had any animations. And the best part about that is that both of these ultimates were used in the defense, and they still weren't able to defend. So
another thing I'm never gonna see is that they back off immediately.
yeah, right. Like, let's keep going. Let's just continue in this glory hole until something bad happens.
Yeah.
Like, in again. Yep, that's true. So they got what they wanted. They got the kill. They even got 2 bonus prizes off of that. And comparing, execution to the first game where they tried to get that turret dive on Akali, and Akali was able to basically frame perfect respond to everything that was thrown in her face. This was much more. Aatrox does not have the mobility that Akali has. It was much easier for them to get this, but the fact that they got both these ultimates makes that even more worth it. And whether or not a team is better subjectively or not, you have the team that's playing better on the day. AT's playing better than JDG.
Good. Makes for better viewing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right, so I was mentioning that Azir's going to try to position himself with these 2 sentries. And Nautilus and Rel both have a lot of crowd control. So they're basically going to say, hey, look, when your team tries to scoop everyone up, we're going to actually go and disrupt that. And Azir's going to stay safe, being able to threaten you. Xayah is also going to be here, front to back, right? They're basically trying to hold this line and say, Xayah, whose ultimate is fly up into the air and become invincible. Azir, whose ultimate is push you, use a wall to push you guys away. These two champions are designed to take the fight and keep it over here. They've got these two sentries that are trying to keep the fight over here. And then they've got this awesome flanker, Jax, who is going to win in the side lane as well. So they can say, hey, if you don't team fight us, then you lose to Jax. If you do team fight us, then Jax has options of either pushing or flanking. And then each situation will basically come down to how important the objective is. Now, looking at it objectively, just where the team, or I guess subjectively, where the team's strengths are, this big team fighting composition wants to continue to stack these dragons because they're very happy. Anytime a fight breaks out, they're going to say that's a win, right? Their kit is a lot of R buttons being pressed together. So as long as we have our R buttons, we're going to try to make fights happen, and we are going to hold our ground in contested territory like a dragon pit, baron pit.
Interesting. So if the objectives are, I don't want to say free, but like you're very incentivized because you have an advantage when you deal to some arbitrary pit, then how do you deal with that on the opposing team where it's like they can take all the objectives they want, we can't fight them, so we're going to do what?
In this case, we talked about these two champions being front to back, and they're saying we're going to disallow you from getting all the way to our back line, and we can actually fight you if we're able to hold this position. Or they can say, we're just going to continue to stay back, hang back, make you work as hard as possible to actually get your prize in the pit. You know, this is the formation if a fight actually does break out. But if a fight doesn't break out, what's generally going to happen is this team is going to look like a sonic wave. They're just going to move back and they're just going to bend while keeping this sort of formation. As you approach them, they'll just keep on moving backwards little by little. And the fact that they have really long range disengaged champions means that this team has to like go a little bit further than they're comfortable with. They'd like to do it, you know, at this range, and maybe it's still acceptable at this range. But you're saying, no. You need, if you want us, you need to come all the way this far. And if that happens, then you've fallen too far into our web and we trap you there. If that makes sense. So
a little bit. How do you get trapped when all you're doing is putting 3 people in the pit, getting the objective and leaving?
all right, so if you're just staying in the pit, that's great. But if you're dealing damage to the Baron, for example, that's someone who's not dealing damage in the team fight. So if all of your people come in and start hitting the Baron, and the enemy team makes like a web around you, and 2 carries are peppering you with damage, how much of that can you withstand, and how do you press the go button? What it's going to come down to is these things, the wards, right? Priority in lanes, so you can get there faster, and when you get there earlier, can you get vision advantage?
Okay.
And
so you're just letting them have their setup on the objectives, and you're saying we're gonna cover the sort of exits in a way that you can't really break out of. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a great plan, and especially if Jax were to get ahead of Aatrox, then they would absolutely do that. Now Jax will just win this matchup later. He is a dominant 1v1 champion, whereas Aatrox is trying to like really flank and get into team fights. That this is the X factor that we didn't really talk about. These champions are all go button with R. This is I want to flank you with my ultimate. It's not really a hard engage. It just makes me move faster and makes me stronger. So he's trying to say, I'm going to cut off your escape. So if your plan is wall off your exits and buy as much time for Jax to push as possible, then Aatrox is saying, no, it's happening now, right? I'm behind you. I have dashes that can get over walls, and I'm strong enough where I can be by myself and not worry about the four of you just turning around and killing me. Because that's normally the best thing you can do against a flanker is just engage on them. So you have this interesting dynamic. These four want to go together. This guy wants to shut the door behind so you can't kite them away. And then you have a decision that's going to be very, very difficult. And then it's going to come into, is Jax actually going to make it into this fight? And I think they're going to have to. The quality of the go buttons here on JDG's composition is strong enough to like force the issue. Jax is going to have to come by because there's too much go and the flanker is too strong that the fight is going to happen. KT is going to have to create pockets of vision for themselves where they feel really comfortable. So in a fight like this, you're going to end up seeing like a line of scrimmage being drawn here. And you see that they have a control ward in this bush. They feel very good being in this bush. And anytime that the fight is moving, you see how they're kiting backwards. Enemy teams trying to shuffle into them.
Mm-hmm.
They get the first blood. They get the big initiation on the fight. Jax is only now showing up. And this is the problem with KT even trying to be here against these go buttons, is that the go button, synergy between these four champions is so strong that it forced the issue. And KT was trying to move their way back. They tried to use Azir to push people out. Unfortunately for them, and this is something that should have been planned. I didn't see whether or not it was Rel that did it or Nautilus that did it, but one of them vacuumed everybody as Azir was trying to push them. So instead of pushing them back to here and everyone getting out, they ended up getting pushed to here before they got vacuumed. And that meant that they didn't create enough space, and the rest of JDG was able to continue steamrolling. So that's where it can come down to, and you talk about variance, it can literally come down to quarter second. Maybe we just cast our spells at the same exact time. Maybe we could have prepared for it. Maybe it's a mistake on one person's part to cast their spell after seeing the other. They should have a pretty clear designation of roles, but like I said, these two guys are trying to stop the fight from happening. Enemy team went in. They thought that their job was to stop it. All right, we're going to see it right now. So I'll be able to point out exactly who it is. See how this formation, the two tanky guys? Now, Nautilus casting his Q is a hard indicator of everybody GTFO. But Azir scooped everyone, and then Rel vacuumed everyone. And this meant that the fight didn't actually move. And this whole time, Rakan got back into the fight and pulled everyone back together again anyways. And they said, all right, nope, it's happening. You're going right now, right here. But this is certainly where the wonders of team compositions and how should you play it, that's where the question is. And sometimes you do get very balanced games where both teams kind of want the same thing, and there should be a correct answer for who wants it more, but it can be very hard to come by, and it can come down to individual skill expression in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this feels like it's where things are very dependent on the minutia in a way that's a lot harder for me to follow. This isn't some abstract game plan. This is just like, how did we each manage our individual positions in the fight in ways that I'm just very unfamiliar with?
Well, I'll simplify it. Remember how I said this synergy right here is really, really strong from those four champions?
Yep. Yeah, no, I saw that play out.
Yep.
Yeah.
They spike now. This is a mid-game, team fight oriented. They call it wombo combo sometimes, or even Bronzodia, where taking a bronze strategy of let's just all press our buttons at the same time, but and then the Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh, just like if we all do our things together, then we get a perfect, unstoppable, unkillable thing. But the fact that they have that, and the fact that KT outscales these two champions being dominant endgame forces means that KT really should be just giving these. And you saw that they contested 2 of them and lost. And they still lost the objective, right? You could have just given and tried to take this off the map, take this off the map, and get 500 gold for your team and say, let's just continue to go, because the magic tipping point for this game is 2 items on all your carries. At 2 items is when you're finally feeling that you're actually even in fights, and at 3 items is when you feel like you can take them over. So you're talking, you want to get 3 completed items instead of 2. You only have 2 on Azir. You don't even have 2 on Jax. So this hyper scaling team where you have 2 of the best, alpha endgame carries in the entire game, the fact that they're even showing up for these fights kind of goes against game script. This formation that I talked about, delaying and delaying and delaying, that extends to this. Hold on, they think they found a window to get Baron. This is a very interesting, this is one of those cases where it's, the prize for getting it is very high, and you tend to be able to get yourself out of this situation pretty easily. But you're kind of inviting JDG to come to Baron, which is where they want to be anyways. So it's a very bizarre proposal. Like, it seems very low chance of success. But yeah, these champions would like to peel and peel and wait and try to give these champions as much uptime in the fight as possible. Right now, that's fairly low consequence on just 2 items. They're pretty strong. And you would say that these are the strongest 2 champions in the game right now on 2 items. But is that enough to carry for the team synergy that comes from these 4? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's as extreme where they should be willing to give up the soul and try to go Baron, because they want the game to last another 5 minutes. They want to get to about 30 minutes so that they can get their 3rd items. Right now, that's not possible. So this is perfect by KT. They're saying, okay, Dragon Soul's available. You guys want the soul, right? We're going to go over to Baron, and we're going to continuously threaten advantageous positions as much as possible and say, do you come and commit to one of them and give us the other one? And JDG might be a damned if you do, damned if you don't. The correct answer for JDG is absolutely to take Baron and to give up dragon number 1. This is a completely inconsequential first dragon for KT. The only thing that bugs JDG about it is that means it's another 5 minutes until the next one, right? And they're thinking about Dragon Soul as a potential win condition. I am of the opinion, Andy as well, that this is a fake buff. Oh, hold on, we see a big engage. All right, so they have a little bit of an advantage for themselves, but Rel picking this fight, like I said, is completely off script for what their team is trying to do. Jax finally gets into the fight, but by this point, the carries aren't able to deal any damage. And this is very disappointing. This is a team that should be playing for 30 minutes, and they're trying to fight at 24 minutes. Not only that, but they are just objectively way behind. Now they're down Soul and this. They've got multiple people dead, which means that JDG is going to maybe recall, send a couple people back. They're going to fix waves really quick, and then they're just going to go here and flex their muscles. This is another game where it feels like they're stretching too much. They went for this huge engage on a team that wants to team fight them. This is very poor decision making. And you see that their comp is like almost good enough. They came close to winning that fight, but realistically they can't. If people play well, it's not going to happen. And like we said at the beginning, if you're the worst team, if you're the underdogs, you'd like to make things more coin flippy and maybe take more risks. But that's not the risk, where your team is just definitely weaker. What you want to do is say, are you going here or are you going here? And as soon as they lean one direction, you take the other one. And you say, we're trading. We will delay the game by 5 minutes because you won't have your soul. You can have Baron, and even if you go and take 1, 2, 3 turrets with your Baron buff, we'll still be happier because by the time the next Baron's spawning, we'll have 3 items, everybody.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable to me because basically, as the underdog, the thing that you're giving up is the decision for which objective goes to which team. And you're saying, like, look, you guys, if we engage, are going to win, therefore you get to choose, therefore we get the leftovers. But this, one of the premises here is like, we're not going to win that engage. So you can't just follow that up with, but I guess we'll engage now.
It seems absurd that people at this level would make that kind of fumble. It literally comes down to stuff like this. Like, this game did not come down to individual outplay. It came down to individual decisions and the fact that the team decided to play against their own script. And
Yeah.
this is predictable based on looking at the draft. And if you told me looking at this draft that KT was going to force fights around pits, I'd say GG, game's over. Like, go next. Right? The prize for trying to outplay this team that was going to spike in the mid game is just so predictable that JDG would crush this with these synergies. And you would have to be demonstrably better to outplay your opponents with this comp versus this. And it's really surprising. Honestly, I would assume it's surprising that players at this caliber would allow games to be fumbled away with this, but not everyone's thinking on this level, and that's the difference.
Yeah, that's interesting that in this macro sense, if I am to believe your expertise and experience, since I obviously can't believe my own, then it's very interesting to see that like the holes in the sort of approach are this large. I would have expected smaller things to turn into snowballs, not like you had a game plan that made sense and you had a game plan that loses and you chose the latter. Like it feels a little too black and white.
It was pretty black and white this game, and honestly, like, what was it? Was it game 1 that was like this as well? Just where they're playing off of their own script, right? Their
Yeah,
coaches
game
have
one
put
felt
together
different because like it was defensible in like a misplaced risk assessment sort of way where it's like, okay, if you sort of underestimate the the disadvantage that happens in your worst case and or you overestimate the advantage in your best case, okay, I can see how you get to this miscalculation. But this one feels like i I don't really see how you get there. Like this was just a bit more obvious.
yeah. I mean, pressure and hubris. I can do it. The hot hand fallacy. Like, I'm good enough. I've got my self confidence that I can make this happen, as
Yeah,
opposed to
maybe game one was part of that, where we thought we were the underdogs, we pulled it off, we played super well, and maybe if we keep playing super well, etc., maybe that's part of the sort of lack of logic here of like we
yeah.
can hold our own because we were able to recently.
Actually, remember that level 6 dive in the top lane where I was like, hold on, KT's like actually playing better this match.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that thought creeps into their head, then it dooms the entire
Mm.
narrative of the game.
Yep.
They're
Yeah,
just like,
for
oh,
sure.
wait, we're winning. And the moment you start thinking we're winning, or wait, we could actually beat JDG, like, you are so far from beating them. You need to win 2 more matches. And if that thought creeps into anyone's head, then it'll skew
Yep.
all of your decision making for the rest of the game, where you might be biased towards, wait, no, we can do this. And
Yeah,
you're the probably definite, like, that is almost definitely what happened in this game, to some
I'm
subconscious level at least.
super familiar with how this plays out in the poker world, where
Yeah, I deserve to win.
that doesn't get like a ton of attention in sort of I don't know, strategic literature. People definitely talk and write about tilt. Um, Often get that specific, but I certainly notice, in my own playing that that's a pretty common pattern. Like it's an easy trap to fall into. It just happens a lot, and then even when you see it in retrospect, that doesn't necessarily increase your chance to see it the next time it's happening in the moment.
Yeah. Yep. I told you
Very
about the time
difficult.
I quit poker, right?
The time you quit, I don't know. Maybe not.
It was the guy at the table that was
Uh,
folding when he had an option of checking. And so I
yeah,
labeled
you
him
did.
as a weaker player and then thought like, okay, I will get into hands with this guy because I know I'm a better player because he's making this fundamental flawed play. I think I'm better, therefore I will take more hands against him.
Hmm.
And in reality, it wasn't until the sixth, maybe fifth new player when I recognized it and sixth new player when I confirmed it that he did it exactly once, and he did it once per new player at the table. If someone new sat down, he would make a donkey play, and that was a trap. He was like, "Hey, look, you're better than me, right?" And therefore, I went into hands with him. I was like, "Wait a second, this guy just destroyed me. Why did I think he was weak here?" And
Hmm.
it was because of that sort of situation, and that that hubris that can play out, and especially when you kind of falsely gain confidence, where you have delusional self belief. That can be an asset in some sports, like in basketball, where you have the ball and it's your job to put it in the net. You can have that delusional self confidence, and it can be a good thing, right? Because you erase all of the failures before. It's just me and my job to get this one ball in the one hoop. Then that can succeed. Although you do see times where players you can defend against that as well. The entire first four episodes of The Last Dance about the Chicago Bulls were how do we get past the Pistons, who have a defense designed to stop Michael Jordan, right? And they just had the
Well, now
Jordan
you're losing me,
rules.
but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But the idea of like, in some windows, in some environments, you can have that delusional self belief. League of Legends has way too much team fighting for that to be the case. The strongest
Yeah,
individual player cannot carry a team.
the 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 poker analogy is a good one in terms of like your ability to one fall for the trap and then two recognize that you had fallen deep into it and then make an even more informed decision of like, all right, well, now that I'm aware that not only am I an underdog, but I was tricked into believing that I wasn't, that's it, we're done. I'm not going to continue taking this disadvantage, um, which is great. And it makes me wonder, like, is there an element in the mental on JDG where they can make some sort of read into, okay, KT played really well in the first couple of minutes of the last game. They had incredible pathing. They clearly took a lead early. They had a really well played 3v1 from Akali in game one. Maybe they're going to be willing to take plays that um, feel standard and feel on script in ways that are just good for us because we are sort of, we have the advantage in these sort of normal, predictable situations. And maybe they're going to get a little cocky and they're going to take these risks in spots where they don't need to. So we can not be as worried about um, the ways in which they're looking for advantages. They might look in the wrong places because they're letting their confidence get ahead of them. I don't know if that's part of the dynamic here in terms of how people are thinking about it, but it seems possible, I guess.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. And I would say that this draft would be the perfect way to exploit that mistake. Where you say, huh,
Interesting.
you think that you guys are playing that good, huh? All right. Let's just get the ultimate, like I called this earlier, Bronzodia. Let's just get the ultimate. I press my buttons together and do it better than you. My synergies are stronger than yours. we will punish you if you come face to face with us.
Mm,
This would be the perfect answer for a, hey, we're feeling pretty good. We can fight this because we're better than you, or because we're playing
interesting.
at our best. So we actually think, wow, I'm really dialed in. I'm super focused. I can make any shot. I said the hot hand fallacy earlier.
Hmm.
This could easily be that. I'm making all my shots. Everything's coming up perfect. Like BDD is the guy that survived that play on Akali in game 1, and he could be the one very well telling his team, yeah, we can do this. Like, I'm feeling good. I've got my 2 items. I'm ahead of Oriana. Let's do this. Right? That could happen. We
Yeah,
don't
that
hear the comms, but you are definitely astute in assuming that, like, that's possible. It's, I'd say, probable. And then whether or not it's a coach or a player that just actively and intentionally developed this, then that would be an insane exploit. And then going into game 4, you might have the question of, all right, are they going to buckle down? Are they going to get nervous? It's 1-2. Are we going to get nervous? Now that the game's on the line, we have this really close series that we easily could have lost. What effect is it going to have? A lot of people in elimination games, usually game 1 is the most like passive because people are still feeling out the environment. But then once you get into elimination games, that's when you start seeing people's hands shaking and like thrombosis in their neck. Like we saw it from a North American player on Thursday. Visible, visible, uh, physical effects. And
yeah. So this game 4 would be the time for JDG to kind of chill out and not do anything special and just basically be boring because KT's hand is forced. They
yep.
have to take huge risk. They can't take tiny risk and hope for the best. Or I mean, they can, but that's way harder to calculate in a way where you're going to have some sort of confidence that your decision actually makes sense. Because if you're taking a quote unquote risk where your advantage is small when it succeeds and you can easily lose it later, then it's like, why even bother? Like, this is for the whole set.
Mm-hmm. It's
So they're pretty obligated to go big or go home.
you are a marvel, Dan. The name of this video is definitely going to be for you. Iron Player comes up with world class advice, and like
I
legit.
you know I've played some strategy games. I just don't know my way around this one.
But you're navigating the mental aspects of it at a very high level. It's super cool to hear that thought process.
Well, I like to think that I'm navigating playing poker at a high-ish level. So I,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that carries over here. Like that's pretty cool, but I still feel obligated to insist that my league knowledge is pretty deplorable. I barely know what the buttons on Yorick do, and I literally don't know what they do on anyone else.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you suck. Yeah.
just for our viewers.